Rogan Experience, Ethan.
You're
Okay, so I was just funny, but so over there, I don't know if you heard last year he made a big move to Spotify off of YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people questioned why would you go to Spotify or YouTube for a video format, podcast, and nobody understood. But recently, come out that Joe Rogan had Dr. Malone and a few other doctors on the Joe Rogan Experience, and these episodes have been pretty much banned by YouTube and heavily censored because Dr. Robert Malone, who is actually founded or credited with founding the technology that built the vaccine, was talking about mRNA vaccines. So, yeah, that's like as deep as it gets, right? There's no, he wasn't. It wasn't like the "Don't Look Up" where he's looking in the camera. We're all gonna die, right? Like they were just having a simple conversation and like a small discussion over it, which shouldn't be an issue. But I don't know, why is it being censored so much?
So, was he actually the creator of it? Because I read a lot of stuff that like discredited him from being the sole creator of
No,
mRNA.
he's not the sole creator, but he is the person accredited for doing it. Like even Pfizer credits him for the technology that they used to make the vaccine. So, yeah, I guess that's a murky water of like, did he do it or not? But that's why I said he's the one accredited for it currently.
Okay.
So was it censored? Because like I think Joe Rogan, because of his deal with Spotify, he can only upload videos to YouTube in like clips, like segments, right?
Yeah, he only does clips, yeah.
Yeah, and then that segment was removed.
But the ones but it was being removed, so like it didn't matter if somebody copied and posted it. It was being removed like automatically from multiple sources at once. Like it was actively censored.
Well, I know that Dr. Malone has had a lot of heat under his ass because he's been spreading a lot of misinformation.
He's suspended from Twitter.
Yeah. He's suspended from Twitter right now for spreading Twitter for false information.
Well, not false information. He's just spreading his opinion and what he knows. But the people at Twitter, so that's the thing, right? So Twitter suspends him. Who at Twitter is a medical doctor that practices in the field, right? Like, even if the guy is... So right now, the only reason that Robert Malone is being censored is because he's not following the government-mandated narrative about COVID, right? If you speak out in any way or you dissent against it in any way, you're misinformation. And that's how a lot of people are being labeled. And just because I don't think he's being misinformation, like there's information that he's giving out and he's giving out his opinion. Like I mean, I watched the interview. There's not, I mean, he questions a lot of things, but he never says, if you take the vaccine, you're going to die. He says like, hey, I'm even vaccinated, right? Like, but there's possibilities for things to happen.
So, okay, like when we upload our videos to YouTube, it goes through like a processing thing, but it's like normally like pretty quick to like post and you can publish right away. So why like Joe Rogan in particular? Like that's an interesting to me. Like regardless of whoever was on a show or interview, like you said it happened so quick. Like how did that happen? Like is he actively being sought out? So like how fast was this? It was uploaded to Spotify. Then what happened?
It's not Spotify. So Spotify can't do anything to Joe Rogan right now. Like Spotify employees, we've talked about it before. Spotify employees are hell bent on canceling Joe Rogan. But okay, so the episode with Robert Malone got over 40 million views across all platforms. And that's Joe Rogan's recorded numbers. CNN gets 100,000 viewers per night.
Oh wow.
That's why, because they can't control it. He can't. So we had reports of from Biden coming out, right? So Biden sent out people to each news network to discuss the framing and the bad press that the Biden administration was getting, right? Biden can't do that. He can't send somebody over to Joe Rogan and say, "Hey, let's discuss how you're doing things here." So, what better way than to just shut it down and silence it? Yeah, fat cat.
Beans. So there was a couple other things in the interview. I saw like a couple of clips. I didn't watch the whole thing. Like he had made a couple of statements, but YouTube hasn't hasn't gave a definitive reason why it was removed, but it's like suggested that it violated community guidelines, and I think that's a problem too.
Yeah. So
I think that's a problem. They're not being specific exactly if they're monitoring for this.
It's like the whole banning of Dr. Disrespect with no reasoning from for Twitch. Like it's the exact same thing. You can't just, if you have your community guidelines, you have to stick to them. You can't just blanket ban something because it sort of fits your community guidelines. Like, oh, it's close to this rule, just fucking ban it. Like, no, it doesn't work like that.
So what was he going on about, like mass formation psychosis? Like, what exactly is that? I couldn't really find anything about it.
Yeah, so it was just a theory that he's been working on and building, and it's when we watch the apes, right? So when we watch apes, have you ever heard the experiment of the water, right? So apes, you put bananas in the middle, right? So if an ape climbs up, they get a banana. Well, you shoot the apes with water, then they'll stop other apes from going up there, and they'll attack and beat and do whatever they can so that nobody gets sprayed with water. And even if you stop spraying with water and you introduce new apes, the older apes will beat those newer apes and still teach the same cycles, right? So you're mass conditioning somebody or a group of people, and that's what he was leading towards, is the mass condition of compliance with large quantities of people, which would be the population of the United States.
Okay, I kind of get it. Dom, what's up?
What? Dom, hello.
So, I mean, I guess one example you can say is if you see the group of people surrounding and attacking somebody, like we've seen the videos more early on in the pandemic, but if you saw an unmasked person, a horde of people would go and like surround him and start yelling at him. Well, you've more or less hypnotized those populations that everybody has to wear a mask or we're all going to die. So then the social enforcement of items are easier than the authoritarian enforcement of sending the police. And actually, when he's talking about this, he's talking about how Trump did it to people, right? like that's some of the where you don't get where they, there's some people say Trump was a master hypnotist and he hypnotized a lot of people, right? And that was why you get the Trump derangement syndrome and all those. Crazy, but like that's some of the items that they were talking about, but we can't even talk about or discuss because it's against the community guidelines of YouTube. So is YouTube now controlling what is published? So are they now publishers? Right?
That's been a subject of conversation for like the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's been some intense scrutiny, yeah.
So what is Joe Rogan doing about this? Like, can he do anything or
I mean, he's talking shit, but that's about it. But this is why he left YouTube, right? Like they're just proving him right. So what can he do? But they're getting as much publicity and talking about the aspect as they can because this isn't the first time YouTube has done this path. And, if you're solely on YouTube and that's your source of income and you can't freely express your opinions on there, then there you go. Like, what do we do? And at a certain point, private corporations, there's more people on YouTube and using YouTube than that are in the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it clearly has power.
Yeah, though TikTok creators have switched to YouTube. Twitch creators, streamers are switching to YouTube to get more into content creation. Like that makes sense. And then there are those longtime YouTubers, like controversial ones, like Philip Franco, Tim Cast, and some other ones that I can't think off the top of my head, that continuously have suppression issues because of some of the topics that they talk about. That's been a constant issue for years, and it's not something new. That's just coming to the woodworks. It's just being exacerbated by Joe Rogan being targeted now, or a segment
it's like
into
storefront.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
no, you're fine.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's like a storefront, right? Like if you have your store, right, you can stock whatever you want in the store, right? You can put whatever rules you want, and the consumer, the shopper, makes the decision to shop there. Same thing with like YouTube content or just content in general. If you choose to subscribe to those ideas, or if you choose to listen to them, that's your prerogative. Now, what you do with that information is up to you. And I think that that's where it gets dicey, is because a lot of people are saying, well, like these people have influence on what sways public opinion and it has to be the truth. Well, it may be your truth, but that's not their truth, or it's not the actual facts. And I think that's where it gets like super like muddy and messy. But I personally don't think that YouTube should be censoring things like that. I think that we do have freedom of speech, and regardless if you agree or align or whatever, that's kind of your responsibility, your personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And in this particular matter, you have a corporation censoring a doctor, saying that the doctor's advice goes against the corporation's statement, so you can't have the doctor's advice, right? Like, in a way, when the YouTube is not a medically trained doctor who studied the field and, was involved in the technology themselves. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't agree with what he's saying, he's at least worth hearing out, or hearing what he has to say, and then allowing people to make that choice of, this guy's crazy, or hey, this is interesting. But YouTube's taking that away. Like, they are taking away the error of choice and forcing content upon people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what can like your everyday content creator do that maybe, because YouTube has such a big influence internationally, what other avenues can they use?
Well, I mean, other platforms for sure. So just like in your financial aspect, right? Diversify your platforms. There's no reason you're only on YouTube, right? YouTube's not, as a small creator, YouTube's not paying us. So like even us, we're not big enough to get YouTube partnership, right? Like it's outrageously hard. And then on top of it, they're already running ads and getting revenue on our content that we don't get paid for, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the cost of doing business, right? But there's other platforms that are way more rewarding and more encouraging to people. And so it's not always a problem to hedge your bets, right? Like reach out to those alternative techs and try it out. Like the least you can do is just try it. If you don't like it, there are plenty more to pick from.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And even like Spotify is doing video, Venmo does video. Like there are a lot of different options, and you don't need all your videos curated anymore, right? Like YouTube was built because there was billions of videos that needed to be funneled and curated. Well, we're a little past that, and we have a little bit more technology and information now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at the end of the day, the big question that we need to ask ourselves, especially, when we're thinking about voting and other items, is is our congressperson understand that if Google has moved to the point where they can claim they're a global corporation and they don't need to follow the United States rules anymore, then we no longer need to allow them the protections of 230 or other items like that and allow them to fend for themselves, you know?
Google's going to end up starting its own country.
A virtual country.
Yeah, I'm not for that. I'm not for any company-owned cities or countries, or even a street. Like, no, you're not allowed. Not for that.
I mean, companies own property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like a Zillow.
Right.
So you're just talking about like their home base being in the U.S. and that's how they're protected, or
They're a registered company in the United States. So they are supposed to be following United States law, but they claim that we are an international company and we have to follow everybody's laws, blah, blah, blah.
Pertaining to that country.
yeah, when you're
So-
doing the
Like there are creators, right? They could be a creator in the United States and they'll get a warning that their video violated the law in Germany or violated the law in Australia.
Kind of like how already now with certain YouTube series, you can't watch them outside of the country. Like, I was trying to look at something on a Reddit post, and someone had posted a link. Went to the link, said, "Sorry, this YouTube video is not allowed in your country." Like, I get those, and we live in the United States.
yeah, I think those are fine, but you can't penalize a creator when something is against the law in a different country. Like they don't live in that country, so they technically don't have to follow those laws.
And that's the really murky water that like YouTube has to trek and walk through, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then again, if they're going to violate our laws, why are we still writing laws to protect them?
Yeah.
Speaking about protecting people.
Well, that wraps up another great episode. And don't forget to join our amazing and supportive community on Discord.
In our Discord, you can find game nights, watch parties, food pics, Dungeons and Dragons, and more. What's not to love about that? We have a little something for everyone. Head over to our website, officialmillennials.com, and you'll find more info, especially our featured Gamer of the Week.
Speaking of something for everyone, we have a book club. We read a book almost every month and talk through it together. We also have a special perk for our subs to discuss other books in a series called Chapter 2.
Don't forget to swing by YouTube and drop us a follow at Official Millennials. You can also find us on Twitter at MillsOfficial. We appreciate all the support, and y'all have a good one.
This is an Official Millennials production.